Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we have the SS torn apart behind me. You know, we're working on the torque converter project. That is not the ZL1 converter, that is the stock converter. And you guys can't see it. You might be able to see it, but the transmission's hanging down a little bit. So we're in the middle of that torque converter upgrade, and we're actually gotten to the point where we are starting to button it back up. But before we button the transmission and torque converter assembly all back together, we're going to install one more piece. You guys might be wondering, what are we putting in? Well, the SS Camaros, the G8s, the sedans, you know, like we have behind me, basically the Zeta chassis, there is no dipstick for the transmission. So what we're going to be doing is installing this dipstick assembly from Jannetty Racing. Now, Jannetty Racing really focuses on Camaros and Corvettes, but they do make some parts that are pretty universal. What we're basically going to be doing is taking off the transmission fill plug on the passenger side, stick this end in, remove one of the bell housing bolts. I believe it's the upper bell housing bolt on the passenger side. This might be the lower. Let's look at that. Actually, guys, that might be the lower. If it is the lower, great, because that one's easy to get to. The upper one's kind of a pain. And then we are going to have to fish a wire harness around here. And then this will be sticking up in the engine bay up near where the coolant lines are. So let's go ahead and get this put in the car and see how hard the install is. Here is the oil fill plug. It's right here on the passenger side. You guys see this boss? You simply got to pull it out of there. And what I used was actually one of these trim panel removal tools. I stuck it under the plug, pressed up like that, and it popped the whole assembly and it shot out, and we're good to go. So I am actually going to take the dipstick out of here so that we have, you know, more room to fish this thing in. But yeah, I think I'm right. I think it is going to be the lower bolt right here and not the upper. The upper one is kind of a pain to get to. I already had trouble getting that out when I took the transmission out for the torque converter. So let's go ahead and get that bolt, the lower bolt off, and put this in. All right, guys, we got the dipstick installed. This install actually wasn't super hard. I just had to look online for several sources for it, you know, for information on how to install this. Unfortunately, Jannetty Racing does not provide you any instructions on how to install it. So I was like, well, that sucks. So I found a video from a friend of mine. His name is Frank Canora. He installed the same dipstick on his Camaro, which this kit's meant for. You guys can see where the foil wrapped wire is right there. He cut a little notch right there. Now that might have been necessary for his car, but mine, honestly, guys, if you look, this wire is free to move. You know, it's not pinched or anything. You know, it's just sitting there, and we should be good to go. And the wire harness above it was pretty simple. You know, you just got to move it. Now, to get the wire harness for the transmission up and out of the way, what you got to do is, you guys will see this plug right here. You see that port on the transmission? That's actually where a plastic piece comes down, like a little plastic nub comes down, and that actually holds the main harness for the transmission. However, as you guys can see, I disconnected that right there and pushed it up and out of the way, and the transmission harness is now basically above the trans. And you know, I'm gonna wiggle it a little bit. You know, there's no tension. It's got plenty of room to move. It's got plenty of room to expand. So we just moved that up out of the way, and that installed like real quick. And then I'll show you the bottom. I think you guys can see that up there. You guys can see where the dipstick ends. You can see it barely back there. You see that little kind of brass tube? That is the top of the JRE Dipstick. And as you guys can see, we have, you know, the transmission little dipsticks sticking out of it. And all we got to do is basically just shove this back in there, and we're done with the install. As you can see way down in there, you guys can see it say trans lock. Now, I did have to feed that through several times to finally figure out which way that's going to go. And finally, I got it down there, and we're good. So we got our trans dipstick. The oil dipstick is not here because I still have to install the passenger side header, but we should be good. And that's kind of the completed install for the JRE or Jannetty Racing Engineering trans dipstick. So that's going to be it for the JRE transmission dipstick install. Like I said, nothing really crazy. This isn't a super hard install. All you really got to do is take that pin off the transmission side on the passenger side, lift that transmission harness up, probably pull it up 5 or 6 inches, and it'll give you all the clearance that you need for the dipstick to go around where the harness goes. Now, you cannot keep the transmission harness in the same location as stock, because honestly, those two pieces, the dipstick and the harness, are basically fighting for the same spot. So, like I said, just pull that pin, pull it up, and you're good to go. And if you guys are worried about that harness moving around, you really shouldn't. The back pin is still there. The connection into the transmission is still there. And honestly, guys, I doubt that stuff will ever move. And we should be good to go. So, like I said, that's going to be it for the transmission dipstick install. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you want to know when I upload new content, hit that bell notification button down below. And as always, if you want to help support the channel, click all the links down below. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.